When you don't have a lot of money, people treat you like you have failed morally. And it doesn't matter how old you are, people feel like you have to be punished for not having money because their assumption is that you have been greedy in some way or you're just kind of a terrible person. And everything that you do is evidence that you're an awful human being when you don't have a lot of money. For example, if you eat something that is delicious, if you engage in any kind of leisurely activity, perhaps smoking a cigarette or watching television. If you don't have a lot of money, you are not even allowed to look like you're enjoying yourself because people will be like, well, why aren't you working? And so one thing that I've noticed that a lot of people do, is that at any given moment, they'll tell you how busy they are, how much they're working, and kind of like complain about it. And I think that this is not only because, right now we're in late stage capitalism, work sucks. But I think it's also because people want you to know that they might not have a lot of money, but they are not enjoying their life. Don't you worry about that. They don't want you to think that for 1 minute they're not worthy of whatever joy they may display at some other time. It's like there's this constant burden of proof on whoever has money to prove that they got it the hard way. They're not one of those ne'er-do-wells who don't deserve joy or comfort. And so all of this kind of ties in to the people who are extremely wealthy, who are sitting on so much excess wealth, and they don't deserve to be comfortable and they don't deserve joy because they're actively robbing from the rest of civilization. Like, those are the true ne'er-do-wells. But instead, we are having conversations about whether poor children should be able to eat. Because God forbid a poor child, be comfortable or experience joy. God forbid. That is how much poor people are absolutely fucking hated by everybody. Personally, one thing that I have learned in my 41 years of life is that I would rather unalive myself than be around people who are not my immediate biological family when I do not have money. The evil that I have seen come out of people that when they think that you don't have money is a kind of evil that I will never subject myself to ever again. The sense of power, the sense of righteousness, the sense of psychopathy that it brings out of people when they think they are with someone who does not have money is something that I will never be able to unsee. What's wild is that when I didn't have a lot of money, I was more susceptible to people robbing me. People who had money robbing me because they would take advantage of how guilty I felt for not having it. People would ask me personal questions because they felt like my business was their business because I didn't have money, and I told them, hey, I don't have enough for this. Now they think that they can ask me my personal information. The amount of entitlement that people have, the amount of power that they get from the feeling of knowing you don't have money is wild. And I would literally cut my left breast off with a butter knife before I tell anybody about my financial situation, anybody outside of my biological immediate family. I don't socialize with people. I don't hang out with people. I don't do anything with anybody unless I have a certain amount of money in the bank. And even then, when people ask me how I'm doing fine. Somebody asked me, do you need anything? Nope, I don't need nothing. People ask me, what have you been up to? I've been working very hard. I do not care what my situation is. I don't tell nobody nothing about my hard times. Anybody like in my real actual life, I don't consider internet real. I'll tell y'all all day, I'm broke, I'm poor, what I'm going to do, donate to my Cash App. But like in real actual life, everything's amazing because I have seen what evil comes out of people when they think you don't have money. Thinking that financial literacy is going to solve poverty is like thinking that throwing a book about swimming to a person who is drowning is going to stop them from drowning. The logic is so bad that you have to look at the person who thinks it and try and like map it back to like like you have to walk the person through the logic, because how in the world is um, learning about money going to solve a person's problem if they don't have money in the first goddamn place? I see that somebody else answered your question, but I kind of wanted to jump in here too, because I feel like this is something that's hard for anyone who has not experienced extreme poverty to understand. All types of people do this. There is no profile. A lot of people in my comment section talked about how their family does this. And for me, in my experience, my family's never done this. So that's why they are my safe space. But for a lot of people, it's their families that do this to them. In other cases, it can be one's friends or so-called friends. It can be anybody who knows about your situation. And for whatever reason that people have for treating others in a really terrible way because they think that that person is lazy or whatever, like whatever people are socialized to believe about the poor comes out in the way that they treat poor people. So if you are a person who knows right from wrong and you try to do what Jesus tells you to do, and just whatever the case may be, you could be the best person ever. But if you are socialized to believe that poor people are dirty and lazy and whatever terrible stereotype you were made to believe about poor people, when you interact with poor people, that is going to come out. So there's not really a profile that I can personally give you, because that would be like me describing all of the people who think that strawberries taste good. Last but not least, poor people do this too. This is not, you cannot look at a poor person and think, oh, they're kind and they're a safe space. No, poor people are not a safe space. In my experience, poor people shame each other just like middle class people and rich people. It does not matter. There is a big shame and guilt factor when it comes to being poor, and that shame and that guilt causes people who are in the worst of situations to perpetuate the same offenses that everybody else is perpetuating against poor people. So this is not again, there's really no profile that I can give you, because in this capitalistic world that we are all a part of, we have all been socialized to a degree to look at poverty as a moral failing. The hatred of poor people is not a shark, it's the water. Okay, so one thing that I do want to acknowledge is that I know that I am lucky, I am blessed, I am privileged when it comes to my family. My family is my wealth, and I am in no way advocating for anybody to be loyal or to subject themselves to abuse at the hands of their family just because they share blood. So here's the thing, like poor people are not allowed to experience joy, rest, or peace. Those three things are unofficially against the law for poor people to experience. And so in this sense, everybody's socialized to turn into the cops when they see a poor person experiencing joy, rest, or peace. And that is what you saw. This person, your coworker at Meals on Wheels, got activated like a sleeper agent once they saw that this poor person had the audacity to experience joy in the form of entertainment that one must pay for. Because anytime a poor person is experiencing joy, rest, or peace, they stole it. It doesn't matter if they paid for it, they stole it. And the tragic irony, well, not really an irony because it's definitely contrived, but the tragedy of it all is that, you know what the three main ingredients are to success? Say it with me: joy, rest, and peace. You are not allowed to come up for air. I'm telling you, as a poor person, you can't come up for air. I know I'm making a lot of videos about this, but I'm talking about this because it's something that I never been able to put the words to when I was younger, but I have the words and I have the time these days. And also, I want talking about these things to be a big part of my content, because I want to be a safe space for people to say this stuff. I think, honestly, every person who has grown up poor or has had a stint in poverty has had an experience where somebody is questioning them about their possessions or their lifestyle or whatever, joy, peace, or arrest that they've come across in a way that confuses whoever's doing the questioning, whoever has deputized themselves as the poverty police. One of my closest friends had an experience in college where he had been voted president of his fraternity, and at the time he didn't have a lot of money, and so but either way, he was president of his fraternity. He did a damn good job, and he was trying to budget the expenses because the fraternity had been in debt. He says that he was walking down the street one day, and his shoes were just falling apart. This is how bad he was doing. And so he saw some shoes that had been put out by a dumpster, and so he takes his shoes off and puts the shoes on. And I think the newer shoe, the dumpster shoes, had like a slight hole in it or something, but they were still better than the shoes that he was wearing. So he just like traded those shoes, and he was able to fit them, and he walked off in his new dumpster shoes. So one day, one of the people, I know he watches my TikTok, so sorry, I hope you don't mind me telling the story. So either way, one day he says that the people in his fraternity were upset about how he was budgeting the finances. And they were kind of like drumming up distrust in him, like, well, we're not really in debt, you're just stealing the money. And this person had said, yeah, those are some really nice shoes you got on, while pointing at his dumpster shoes. Now, of course, he did not tell the person the truth about the shoes or anything like that, but you could imagine the internal conversation that he had in his head about the irony of all of it. When you are poor, you come across things in the strangest ways. You will have access to luxury items sometimes. They sell them in secondhand stores. Sometimes you just find stuff like my friend did outside a dumpster or whatever. Like, there are ways to have things that are nice when you're poor. And when everything is a status symbol, every single thing, it becomes harder and harder for poor people, excuse me, to have to prove why or how or where they got the things that they got. A poor person experiencing any kind of joy, any kind of peace, any kind of relief is considered a thief anyway, or a liar, or lazy, or just whatever. They're always doing something wrong, and it's always tied in somehow to their moral values as a person, to their ethics. So if you are walking around with a cell phone, if you have new shoes, if you have, a pair of sunglasses, whatever the case is, it's going to be factored in as evidence against whatever you say as a poor person. It'll be proof that you're lying about your financial situation because clearly you're living outside of your means. And this is not to say that some people are not living outside of their means, but it is to say that if this class system, if this hierarchy wasn't a prison, there would not be so many police officers, so many prison guards on the lookout for symbols that the prisoners might have escaped and gotten to some contraband. At this point in life, cell phones are a necessity. And you don't even have to pay a bill on a regular basis when it comes to having a cell phone in order to have access to Wi-Fi and all of those things. A lot of people are out of touch when it comes to what necessities are nowadays because they remember a time when it wasn't necessary to have a cell phone. But nowadays, you have to have a cell phone. There are jobs and programs and all kinds of things that you cannot apply to in the analog physical world. You have to do it online. Cell phones are now little mini computers. They are absolutely necessary. And it's just, and again, this is another way that people are brainwashed to work against their own best interest. Because if you don't want a unhoused person in your community, but you don't want them to have a cell phone so that they can possibly, reach out to programs that can help them get off of the streets, what are you even arguing? You know what I mean? What in the world are you fighting for? So, I don't know. Sorry, long video, but Yeah, I get what you're saying. Misery likes company. When I am at my lowest, when I am at my most miserable in life, I don't get on Instagram, because I will get on Instagram and look at all the pictures of people that are connected to me in some way, and see all the ways that they're smiling and enjoying their lives, and I can think in my head all the reasons why they don't deserve it. I have enough self-awareness to be able to know that I am projecting onto other people my shame and my guilt and my feelings of inferiority and my feelings of just miserableness, because as soon as I get on, if I know I'm in a bad place when I get on Instagram and I look at people that normally I'd be happy for, and I'm like angry that they're enjoying things in life that I can't enjoy. So I get these sentiments because I feel these sentiments sometimes too. However, in these moments, it's important to have self-awareness and understand that that is a you problem. There is no such thing as a free handout, especially when it comes to the United States. I don't know if you're an American. I mean, if you're in any Western country, there is no such thing as free government assistance. It has been paid for in blood. Also, I do want to add that joy, rest, and peace, they are acts of resistance and rebellion. I'm not saying that I endorse all acts of joy, all times that people are doing things to get their rocks off, like not all, but it's important to remember that joy, rest, and peace are such a huge cornerstone of revolution, because if we are not constantly reminding ourselves of this, we will subject ourselves to slavery, and then we will look at other people and get mad that they're not doing the same thing. The system is the problem. It's not the individuals who are trying to survive within it. One thing about being poor is that you're going to come across things in the strangest ways, because when you're flying by the seat of your pants, like, the universe has a way of blessing you, at least in my experience. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I do want to say that where humans don't show up for each other, the universe tends to kind of close that gap a little bit. It can only do but so much because humans work against it so hard. And so I've found that in times where I have been in need of a very specific thing, I tend to get it. And sometimes when I get it, it'd be something fancy. You know what I mean? And this confuses people who strictly shop for things on the basis of it being a status symbol. I'm sure you didn't care that the toaster was worth $150 to $200. You just needed a toaster, right? So, in many cases, people will kind of project how they feel about status symbols onto you because you happen to have something that's a status symbol when you're really just being a grown-up and fulfilling a need for yourself. I needed some sunglasses, and lo and behold, I got some Prada sunglasses for some reason. I managed to get them for free. Like, that's how the universe works. And people who are very locked in to everything must be this way, this is how the prison system here works, they don't understand it. They don't understand that the universe slips you contraband every once and again when you're poor. Some people think that, most people think actually, that when you're poor, even God hates you. And that is why they don't understand when poor people experience any good fortune.